There is a very specific kind of exhaustion that sleep simply cannot fix. It is not the light, satisfying physical tiredness that comes after a long day of moving your body, nor is it the natural fatigue that follows working hard on something you deeply care about. It is a quiet, heavy weight sitting right in the center of your chest, a persistent, dull ache that lingers from the moment you open your eyes in the morning to the moment you lie down at night. You wake up already feeling behind, already feeling drained, before your feet have even touched the floor. You go through every single motion required of you. You get up. You speak to the people around you. You offer gentle smiles. And you meet every expectation placed on your desk, handed to you by your family, or demanded by your daily routine. From the outside, it looks like you are managing just fine. People might even look at you and compliment your strength, your reliability, or how seamlessly you keep everything together. But underneath that calm, functional exterior, you feel hollow. You feel as though you are observing your own life from behind a thick pane of glass, watching yourself perform a role that no longer feels like it belongs to you. This deep, soul-level fatigue is not a sign that you are weak. It is not a character flaw, and it is not a personal failure. It is a profound, compassionate message from your mind and body, telling you that you have been living away from yourself for far too long. It is the cost of constantly carrying everyone else's needs, opinions, and expectations while abandoning your own. You have spent so much time being who you needed to be for other people. The dependable one, the quiet one, the peacemaker, the one who never complains, that you have slowly abandoned the person you actually are. Think about how much energy it takes to constantly perform. Every time you swallow your true feelings to avoid a disagreement, a small part of your spirit quietly steps back. Every time you smile when you are hurting, say yes when your heart is screaming no, or force yourself into spaces where you cannot breathe freely. You create a tiny rift inside yourself. Over weeks, months, and years, those tiny rifts widen into a vast distance. You become a stranger to your own inner world. You forget what genuinely makes you feel alive, what brings you quiet joy, or what it feels like to rest without feeling guilty for simply existing. Living away from yourself means existing in a state of constant, unspoken friction. It is like wearing a coat that is 3 sizes too small. You can still walk around in it, but every movement feels restricted, uncomfortable, and suffocating. You carry the emotional weight of holding up an identity that isn't true to your current heart. You spend your precious, finite energy managing how you are perceived rather than honoring how you actually feel. And that continuous effort, the quiet, invisible strain of keeping up appearances while your inner house is in darkness, is the real reason you are so profoundly tired. Your exhaustion is not asking you to try harder, to do more, or to fix yourself. It is asking you to pause. It is asking you to stop running away from the quiet voice inside you that has been trying to get your attention for a very long time. Your body is heavy because it is tired of carrying a life that doesn't fit you anymore. Your heart is tired because it wants to be felt, not just managed. Returning to yourself doesn't require a massive, dramatic life overhaul. It begins with the quiet recognition that you are allowed to inhabit your own life. It starts when you decide that your peace matters just as much as anyone else's comfort. Before we go any deeper into understanding why we drift away and how we can gently make our way back home, take a moment right now to ground your intention. Take a slow, deep breath. Let your shoulders drop away from your ears, and leave a comment below with this simple affirmation: I am choosing to return to myself today. Let those words be your first gentle step back toward your own heart. We rarely lose connection with who we are overnight. It almost never happens through a single dramatic decision or a sudden, loud realization. Instead, it is a slow, silent erosion that happens over months and years, so quietly that you don't even notice the foundation shifting beneath your feet. It happens in the tiny, seemingly unimportant moments of daily life, moments where choosing comfort, safety, or peace for others feels so much easier than honoring the quiet truth inside your own heart. It begins when you say yes to a commitment when every single part of your body was desperate to say no. You tell yourself that it's just one favor, just one evening, or just one project, and that being helpful is more important than your own exhaustion. It happens when you sit in a room full of people, listen to a conversation that feels completely misaligned with your core values, and choose to remain silent just to keep the atmosphere smooth and comfortable. You swallow your perspective, quiet your inner voice, and offer a polite smile instead. In that moment, nothing seems broken on the outside, but on the inside, a small, vital thread of your self-trust gently snapped. Think about how many times you have pushed aside a creative urge, a spontaneous passion, or a deep, personal preference simply because someone else thought it was impractical or unnecessary. You wanted to write, to paint, to sit quietly in nature, or to change your daily rhythm, but someone's casual doubt made you shrink back. You tucked that part of yourself away in a dark corner, promising you would return to it later when the timing was better. But later rarely comes. Instead, you slowly learn to prioritize what is logical to others over what feels alive to you. You trade small, precious pieces of your inner truth for the temporary comfort of acceptance. You learn to read the room before you read your own heart. You become hyper-aware of what makes the people around you feel comfortable, pleased, and secure, and you adapt yourself to become whatever shape is required of you. If a relationship requires you to be quiet, you turn down your volume. If a job requires you to ignore your need for rest, you push past your limits and wear your exhaustion like a badge of honor. You convince yourself that this is just what it means to be responsible, mature, and caring. Over time, these tiny, subtle compromises accumulate into an overwhelming weight. You look around at the schedule you keep, the conversations you participate in, the career path you are walking, and the daily habits you repeat, only to realize with a sudden, quiet ache that almost none of it reflects who you actually are. You look in the mirror and realize you are living a life built around the preferences, demands, and comfort of everyone else, while your own soul has been relegated to a spectator. This silent drift creates a profound sense of grief, a quiet mourning for the person you used to be before you thought you had to change to be loved or accepted. You miss the lightness you used to feel when you were younger, the unforced laughter, and the simple clarity of knowing what you liked and what you didn't. You miss feeling fully present in your own skin. The tragedy of drifting away from yourself isn't that you became a bad person. It's that you became a selfless actor in a story that was supposed to be your own. The drift is so dangerous precisely because it feels so reasonable while it is happening. Nobody sets out to abandon themselves. You did it out of kindness, out of a desire to belong, or out of a protective need to survive difficult seasons. But recognizing how silently you walked away is also the key to finding your way back. You do not need to fight your way home with aggression or drastic measures. Just as you drifted away through tiny, silent choices, you can make your way back through quiet, intentional moments of self-honesty. One truthful breath, one soft refusal, and one gentle step at a time. To navigate the endless demands of daily living and survive in a world that constantly asks us to conform, we learn to develop outer roles. Very early in life, we discover that showing our raw, unedited selves isn't always met with warmth or understanding. So, we adapt. We learn how to present a calm, capable, composed, and easygoing surface to the world, regardless of the storm that might be raging inside our chest. We construct a version of ourselves that is convenient for others to handle, a version that doesn't make waves, doesn't ask for too much, and always knows how to say the right thing at the right time. The analytical psychologist Carl Jung described this social facade as the persona, the protective cloak or public mask we wear to meet the expectations of the society around us. He observed, "The persona is a complicated system of relations between individual consciousness and society. Fittingly enough, a kind of mask, designed on the one hand to make a definite impression upon others, and on the other to conceal the true nature of the individual. When you look at it closely, wearing a mask isn't inherently evil or foolish. It is a mechanism of survival. It is the armor we put on when we walk into spaces where we feel vulnerable, unseen, or evaluated. It is the polite smile you offer when you are hurting inside, the confident posture you assume when you are terrified of failing, or the agreeable nod you give when your true opinion feels too risky to voice. The persona allows us to function in dynamic social spaces, hold down jobs, maintain relationships, and keep moving forward when life demands structure. The profound danger, however, comes when we wear this mask for so long, and with such dedication that we forget how to take it off. Problems arise when the boundary between the mask and your true face begins to blur. You become so accustomed to playing the role of the helper, the achiever, the strong one, or the easygoing friend that you begin to measure your entire self-worth by how well you perform that role. You start to believe that people only love the mask, not the human being living behind it. And so, the fear of letting that mask slip becomes overwhelming. Think about how much vital energy it takes to maintain that polished, pleasing exterior every single hour of the day. You have to constantly monitor your expressions, censor your thoughts, suppress your natural boundaries, and hide your fatigue. You live in constant fear of being discovered as fragile, confused, or imperfect. When your entire reserve of spirit is dedicated to protecting this outer image, your internal reality becomes starved of love, attention, and truth. You end up surrounding yourself with people who love a version of you that doesn't actually exist, leaving your true self feeling profoundly lonely, isolated, and forgotten, right in the middle of a crowded room. The mask promises us safety and belonging, but it trades away true connection to get it. You cannot experience genuine intimacy, true love, or authentic belonging while hiding behind a shield. When someone compliments or loves your mask, it never truly reaches your heart, because deep down, you know they are praising the performance, not the performer. The exhaustion you feel is the heavy price of living in hiding, the immense strain of keeping up appearances while your inner house remains in darkness. Taking off the mask does not mean exposing your deepest wounds to everyone you meet. It simply means admitting to yourself who you are when nobody is watching. It means granting yourself permission to drop the performance, even if only in the quieta privacy of your own room. It means allowing yourself to be human, to be tired when you are tired, to be uncertain when you don't have all the answers, and to trust that your worth is not tied to how well you can play a role for others. When you stop hiding behind what you think you should be, you finally create space to meet the person you actually are. When you live separated from your true core, your mind, heart, and body do not stay silent. They begin to send quiet, urgent signals, desperate to catch your attention before you completely lose your way. At first, these warning signs are subtle, like gentle taps on the shoulder that are easy to brush aside in the noise of daily responsibilities. You might tell yourself that you are just having an off day, that you are simply stressed, or that everyone feels this way eventually. But if you stop and pay close attention, you realize these feelings are not random. They are the unmistakable cries of a soul that has been ignored for far too long. One of the earliest signs is a constant, underlying sense of irritability that seems to linger attached to almost everything you do. You find yourself feeling deeply annoyed by routine tasks, small requests, or simple conversations that never used to bother you. It isn't that the world around you has suddenly become unbearable. It is that your internal cup is completely full, leaving zero room for anything extra. When you spend all your energy suppressing your true feelings to keep things peaceful on the outside, even the smallest additional expectation feels like an overwhelming weight pushing you past your limit. Another quiet sign is a sudden, heavy loss of motivation for things that used to light you up inside. You look at activities, projects, or creative outlets you once loved, and you feel nothing but a flat, neutral emptiness. It isn't that you have grown lazy. It is that your energy cannot flow into things when you are fundamentally disconnected from your core truth. When you are forcing yourself through a life that doesn't fit, your spirit simply refuses to invest its passion. You start going through the motions on complete autopilot, moving your body from one task to the next, while your heart remains miles away. Perhaps the most common way we respond to self-estrangement is by constantly seeking escape. When being present with yourself feels uncomfortable or painful, you look for anything that can numb the silence. You might find yourself scrolling mindlessly through phone screens for hours, lost in a blur of content you don't even care about, just to keep your mind occupied. You might leave background audio playing continuously in every room, making sure there is never a single moment of quiet where your real thoughts might surface. You might throw yourself obsessively into your daily work, filling every inch of your schedule so you have an excuse never to slow down. These repetitive behaviors and grounding distractions are not moral failures, nor are they proof that you lack discipline. They are gentle coping strategies, desperate, protective mechanisms your mind uses to avoid sitting alone with the aching sadness of feeling like a stranger to yourself. It is terrifying to face the quiet space within when you know that space is filled with unexpressed tears, unspoken boundaries, and neglected truths. And so, you choose the temporary comfort of distraction over the intimidating work of feeling your own heart. Living in this state of inner division requires an unimaginable amount of vital strength. Imagine the energy it takes to hold a heavy door shut against a strong wind every single second of the day. That is precisely what you are doing when you constantly push down your true instincts, suppress your emotional needs, and pretend to be fine when you are breaking inside. That continuous, invisible friction between who you actually are and how you are forcing yourself to live is the real reason behind your profound, unexplainable fatigue. Your exhaustion is not asking you to fight harder or to find better ways to numb the discomfort. It is a compassionate warning system, trying to save you from drifting any further away. It is telling you that the life you are performing is costing you the life you are meant to be living. Recognizing these warning signs is not a reason to judge yourself. It is the invitation you have been waiting for. It is your inner self calling out through the fog, asking you to stop running, to drop the endless distractions, and to finally come back home to your own heart. Returning to yourself requires far more than just taking a temporary break or catching up on lost sleep. Rest can restore your physical body, but it cannot heal the parts of your spirit that you have intentionally hidden away. True reconnection demands a deep, honest, and gentle look at the aspects of your life and your heart that you have spent years choosing to ignore. It asks you to step into the dark, quiet corners of your inner world, the places where your unexpressed hurt, your fear of rejection, and your forgotten truths have been waiting in silence. In analytical psychology, these forgotten, suppressed, or unacknowledged parts of ourselves are referred to as the shadow. The shadow is not a place of evil. It is simply the reservoir of everything you felt you had to hide in order to be safe, accepted, or loved. The analytical psychologist Carl Jung captured the necessity of this inner work when he noted, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." Healing does not happen by pretending that everything inside you is perfectly peaceful. It happens when you build the courage to bring your hidden truths into the light of your own awareness. Confronting the shadow in your everyday life means looking closely at the places where you have repeatedly abandoned yourself just to keep others comfortable. It means recognizing how often you stay quiet when your boundaries are crossed, simply because you are terrified of conflict. It means acknowledging the deep-seated fear of disappointment that drives you to overextend yourself until you crumble. It means facing the quiet resentment that builds up inside your chest when you constantly give to others while refusing to ask for anything in return. We often push these truths into the shadow because facing them feels dangerous. If you admit that you are exhausted by a certain dynamic, you might have to set a boundary. If you acknowledge that a path you are walking no longer aligns with your core values, you might have to face the uncertainty of change. If you own your true feelings, you risk being misunderstood by people who were comfortable with your self-sacrifice. And so, it feels much easier to sweep those heavy emotions under the rug, pretending they don't exist, while wondering why your heart feels so impossibly heavy. But everything you push into the shadow does not disappear. It simply lives beneath the surface, driving your reactions and draining your vital strength. The unexpressed anger turns into chronic tiredness. The suppressed boundary turns into a background hum of anxiety. The unvoiced grief turns into a numb indifference toward your own life. You spend an extraordinary amount of energy holding the door shut against your own internal reality, trying to keep the uncomfortable truths from spilling out into the open. Facing the shadow is an act of immense self-compassion, not self-criticism. It is not about looking at your flaws and judging yourself harshly for having them. It is about sitting down with your pain, your fears, and your unfulfilled needs with the soft, non-judgmental warmth of a true friend. It is looking at your habit of pleasing others and recognizing that you developed it to survive a time when you felt unsafe. It is honoring the protective ways your heart tried to keep you safe, while gently telling yourself that you no longer need to hide who you are to deserve a place in this world. When you gather the courage to look at what you have avoided, the shadow loses its power to control you. The dark corners stop feeling so terrifying once you realize they are simply holding the forgotten pieces of your own wholeness. Acknowledging these hidden truths is certainly uncomfortable, and it may bring tears you have held back for a very long time. But it is the essential, unavoidable doorway to true peace. You cannot rebuild a life that feels authentic until you welcome every single part of yourself back into the house. By bringing the darkness into the light, you finally reclaim the vitality, honesty, and deep internal rest you have been searching for all along. The path back to your true self does not demand that you abandon your responsibilities, walk away from your commitments, or overhaul your entire life overnight. True healing is rarely a sudden, dramatic event that changes everything in a single moment. Instead, reconnection begins in the smallest, most ordinary moments of your everyday routine. The quiet intersections where you are given a choice between defaulting to your old patterns of pleasing others or standing softly in your own truth. Reclaiming your life starts when you learn to pause before immediately answering a request. It happens in that brief, vital breath where you check in with your own heart before offering a response. Instead of automatically saying yes out of habit, fear, or a desire to be helpful, you allow yourself to feel your actual capacity. You ask yourself if you genuinely have the physical, emotional, and mental energy to give, or if giving right now means stealing from your own quiet peace. If the answer is no, reclaiming your truth looks like delivering a gentle, firm refusal without apologizing for having human limits. It looks like choosing to sit in 10 minutes of pure stillness without looking at a screen, searching for a distraction, or trying to prove your productivity. In a world that constantly demands your attention and praises you for staying endlessly busy, choosing to simply exist with yourself is a quiet act of rebellion. It is allowing the room to be quiet, dropping your shoulders away from your ears, and giving your nervous system permission to rest. In those small windows of quiet, you allow your scattered energy to return to your center, settling like dust after a storm. Reclaiming your truth also means honoring your genuine emotional reality when you feel overwhelmed, rather than forcing a smile and pretending everything is fine. For years, you may have conditioned yourself to brush off your own pain, telling the world that you are okay, even when your spirit feels completely crushed. Stepping back into alignment means stopping the performance. It means admitting to yourself, and perhaps to someone you trust, that you are tired, hurt, or confused. It is giving yourself permission to feel your actual feelings without judging them as weak, improper, or inconvenient. Think about how many small compromises you make throughout a single day, just to keep things smooth on the outside. You eat what you don't want, go where you don't want to go, and pretend to agree with opinions that clash with your values. Every time you do this, You send a quiet message to your inner self that your needs do not matter. But every single time you honor an internal truth, no matter how small or insignificant it might seem to anyone else, you do the exact opposite. You send a clear, compassionate signal to your internal system that you are safe to inhabit your own life again. You do not need to rewrite your entire story in one bold stroke. You only need to make small, honest choices in real time. It is choosing to go to bed when your body says it is exhausted, rather than pushing through another hour to finish a task that can wait. It is letting a room fall silent instead of filling it with anxious chatter. It is allowing yourself to like what you like, feel what you feel, and need what you need, without asking for permission from the world around you. These small moments of truth act like breadcrumbs, leading you back home through the dense fog of self-estrangement. Each time you listen to your quiet inner voice, the path becomes a little clearer, and the heavy weight of living away from yourself begins to lift. You start to realize that peace is not something you have to travel far to find. It is something that builds quietly, block by block, every single time you choose to be honest with yourself. Much of our deepest, most lingering exhaustion stems from an unexamined, lifelong habit of seeking external validation to confirm our basic worth. From a very young age, many of us quietly learned that being loved, safe, and accepted was tied to how well we behaved, how much we achieved, or how helpful we could be to the people around us. We learned to measure our value by the smiles on other people's faces, the praise we received for being capable, or the relief we provided by never making trouble. Without even realizing it, we built our entire sense of identity around being needed, approved of, and validated by the outside world. We measure our worth by how useful we are to others, how endlessly busy our calendar remains, or how smoothly we can handle chaotic, stressful situations without ever letting a single complaint slip through our lips. We treat our own energy like an endless resource that exists purely to keep everyone else's world spinning comfortably. We become master shapeshifters, constantly adjusting our tone, our opinions, our availability, and even our personality, depending on who is standing in front of us. We become so hyper-attuned to what other people expect from us that we completely lose track of what we actually need for ourselves. But living for external approval puts your peace, your well-being, and your entire heart into the hands of circumstances and people you can never truly control. When you depend on outside recognition to feel aligned and worthy, you place yourself on an unpredictable emotional roller coaster. A single cold reaction, an unreturned message, a lack of gratitude, or a quiet moment of criticism can completely dismantle your self-worth and leave you feeling shattered for days. You end up trapped in a grueling cycle of constantly adapting, constantly performing, and constantly striving just to keep from falling out of favor. Think about the sheer, overwhelming weight of carrying everyone else's opinions of you. You are trying to be the perfect child, the tireless worker, the ever-patient partner, the always available friend, and the person who never breaks down. You carry the terrifying fear that if you ever stop performing, if you ever drop the ball, or if you ever say, "I cannot do this anymore," the affection and acceptance you fought so hard to earn will suddenly vanish. You are constantly walking on eggshells inside your own life, terrified that showing your true, tired, or imperfect self will make you unlovable. This endless desire for approval is one of the quietest thieves of human vitality. It forces you to betray your own intuition every single day. Every time you change your mind to match someone else's opinion, every time you overextend your body when you desperately need rest, and every time you hide your authentic feelings to avoid disappointing someone, you tell your inner self that other people's comfort is more important than your own truth. You build an existence that looks admirable from the outside, but inside, your own spirit feels completely abandoned, invisible, and starved of real love. Breaking this exhausting cycle requires a gentle, profound shift in where you look for permission to exist. Rebuilding a secure, unshakable center means shifting the source of validation back inward, where it always belonged. It means coming to the quiet, revolutionary realization that your worth as a human being is innate. It was given to you the moment you were born, and it does not increase when people praise you, nor does it decrease when people misunderstand or disagree with you. You do not need to earn your right to occupy space on this earth through endless self-sacrifice. Shifting inward means learning to evaluate your days through a completely new lens. Instead of asking yourself at the end of the night, "Did I please everyone today? Did I do enough to make them like me?" You begin to ask softly, "Was I truthful to myself today? Did I honor my own limits? Did I feel grounded and peaceful in my own choices?" It means learning to tolerate the temporary discomfort of someone else's disappointment when you set a healthy boundary, knowing that their disappointment is a far smaller price to pay than the permanent loss of your own self-respect. Stepping away from the need for constant approval feels scary at first because it breaks a contract you have kept for years. People who were used to your endless compliance might be confused or uncomfortable when you start standing firmly in your own truth. But the freedom waiting on the other side of that fear is boundless. When you stop living for the applause of the crowd, you finally gain the freedom to live a life that actually feels good to live. You stop performing. You drop the exhausting armor of perfectionism. And you finally grant yourself the unconditional love and acceptance you spent a lifetime searching for in others. Wholeness does not mean perfection. It means integration. True healing is not about trimming away the messy, uncomfortable, or painful pieces of your story until only a polished, shiny version remains. It is not about reaching a state where you never feel anxious, confused, angry, or exhausted ever again. Instead, True wholeness comes when you stop warring against yourself. When you allow every single aspect of your human experience, from your greatest strengths to your deepest exhaustion, to exist in the same room without harsh judgment or shame. For so long, you may have treated your difficult emotions as enemies to be conquered or defects to be hidden. When sadness welled up inside you, you fought it off, telling yourself to be strong. When deep fatigue settled into your bones, you forced yourself to keep moving, treating your body's natural limits as a sign of weakness. When confusion or doubt surfaced, you tried to push it down, terrified that acknowledging your uncertainty would make you fall apart. You spent years splitting yourself in two, cherishing the parts of you that felt capable, happy, and productive, while banishing the parts that felt vulnerable, tired, or broken into the dark. The analytical psychologist Carl Jung captured the quiet, transformative power of accepting our total reality when he wrote, "I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become." This choice to become something whole is not made by discarding your past, your pain, or your scars. It is made by gathering all those scattered, neglected pieces of your journey and gently bringing them back home into your heart. It is choosing to hold your grief with the same tender awareness that you hold your joy, knowing that every emotion you feel is a valid, natural part of your human heart. Transformation occurs the moment you stop treating your tiredness or distress as a failure, and instead begin treating it as a compassionate guide. Your heavy fatigue is not trying to sabotage your goals, ruin your plans, or make your life difficult. It is simply a protective signal, trying to keep you from continuing down a path that runs completely counter to your genuine nature. It is your inner self putting its foot down and saying, "We cannot keep living like this." When you stop fighting your exhaustion and finally sit down to listen to what it is trying to teach you, you discover that your pain was never your enemy. It was just a forgotten part of you, begging for attention and care. Think about how much lighter your life becomes when you drop the exhausting requirement to be perfectly put together all the time. Imagine the relief of allowing yourself to have bad days without believing that you are reverting to square one. Imagine giving yourself permission to feel lost without assuming that you have failed your journey. When you integrate your full experience, you stop viewing your tears as weakness and start viewing them as necessary release. You stop viewing your boundaries as selfishness and start viewing them as essential protection for your spirit. Integrating your experience means looking back at every version of yourself, even the ones you might feel embarrassed or ashamed of, with deep, unconditional love. It means holding space for the younger version of you who stayed in unhealthy situations because they didn't know how to leave. It means thanking the version of you who put on a fake smile for years just to survive difficult environments, while gently reassuring them that they no longer need to hide. It means honoring every mistake, every detour, and every season of confusion as vital stepping stones that brought you to the exact place where you are now ready to heal. You do not need to clean yourself up before you deserve your own love and acceptance. You do not need to wait until you have everything figured out to feel at peace in your own skin. Peace comes the moment you pull back the harsh criticism, drop the heavy standards of perfection, and say to yourself, I welcome all of me. I welcome my strength and my weakness, my clarity and my confusion, my past hurt and my present hope. When you integrate every part of your story, the inner division finally stops, the constant friction dissolves, and you step into the quiet, unshakable strength of being completely whole. As you practice returning to yourself, your internal compass gradually regains its clarity. For years, that inner guidance system may have felt completely broken, buried under a mountain of outside opinions, societal expectations, and the constant noise of what you thought you were supposed to do. You spent so much time asking others for direction, seeking advice on how to live your life, and checking if your choices met with approval, that you stopped listening to the quiet, steady whisper inside your own heart. But that compass was never actually lost. It was simply waiting for you to quiet down enough to feel its subtle pulling. Learning to trust your internal compass begins by noticing the distinct physical and emotional differences between choices that expand your vital energy and choices that drain it. Your body is constantly speaking to you, offering clear signals long before your mind finishes analyzing a situation. An option that aligns with your true self brings a deep sense of internal space, breathability, and quiet stability. Even if the decision is difficult or requires a firm boundary, there is a calm certainty that settles into your chest, a feeling that your feet are planted firmly on solid ground, even if the road ahead seems uncertain. On the other hand, an option that disconnects you from your center feels heavy, restrictive, and urgent. It is often accompanied by a tight knot in your stomach, a shallow breath, or a persistent, anxious buzz in your mind. Choices born out of fear, obligation, or the desperate need to please others always carry a subtle feeling of self-betrayal. They make you feel smaller, as if you are shrinking yourself to fit into a space where you do not truly belong. Learning to pay attention to these subtle physical cues is the foundation of rebuilding trust with yourself. Trusting your inner guidance takes time, especially if you have spent years ignoring or second-guessing your instincts. When you first start listening to your internal voice, doubt will inevitably creep in. You will question whether your feelings are valid, whether you are being selfish, or if you are making a massive mistake by not following the crowd. In those moments of hesitation, remember that self-trust is not built through giant, dramatic leaps. It is cultivated through hundreds of tiny, quiet moments of honoring what feels true to you. Every time you honor an internal limit, every time you choose peace over chaos, and every time you walk away from something that dulls your spirit, your internal compass grows stronger. You stop viewing your sensitive nature as a weakness and begin to see it as your greatest navigational tool. You realize that your intuition is simply your accumulated wisdom, your deepest values, and your true self speaking to you through feeling rather than logic. As this trust deepens, the overwhelming need to explain or justify your choices to the world simply melts away. You no longer feel compelled to convince everyone around you why a certain path, boundary, or decision is right for you. You come to understand that the people who truly care about your well-being will respect your boundaries, even if they do not fully understand them, while those who benefit from your self-sacrifice may resist your newfound clarity. And for the first time, you become okay with that dynamic, because losing someone else's approval will never feel as painful as losing your connection to yourself. Coming back to yourself is not a single, heroic event after which you live perfectly aligned for the rest of your days. It is an ongoing, lifelong practice, a soft, deliberate choice you make over and over again, every time the noise of the world tries to pull you away. There will still be days when you overextend your energy, when you forget your boundaries, or when you find yourself slipping back into old, familiar patterns of pleasing, performing, and striving for validation. You are human, and drifting is a natural part of living in a demanding world. The true difference now is not that you never get lost. It is that you recognize the detour so much faster. In the past, you might have spent months or even years living in self-estrangement, completely unaware of how far you had wandered from your core truth. You would carry that heavy, invisible exhaustion until your body or mind reached a breaking point. But now, as you practice standing firmly in your own life, the shift is almost immediate. At the very first sign of that familiar, heavy tightness in your chest, you catch yourself. You feel the fatigue, you notice the subtle rise of resentment, and you gently stop. Standing firmly in your own life means learning to pull your attention back home before the distance becomes vast. It means taking a slow, grounding breath right in the middle of an overwhelming moment and remembering where your true responsibility lies. You remind yourself that your life belongs to you. It does not belong to the expectations of your community, the demands of your workplace, or the unfulfilled wishes of the people around you. Your time, your emotional capacity, and your mental peace are precious, finite gifts, and you are allowed to protect them without feeling an ounce of shame. You walk through your days with your shoulders down, your chest open, and your feet planted solidly on the ground. The constant, draining friction of pretending to be someone else simply dissolves, replaced by the profound, quiet ease of being completely at home in your own skin. Every breath becomes a homecoming. Every boundary becomes an act of self-trust, and every day becomes an opportunity to stand softly, boldly, and unshakably in the truth of who you are.